So, Chris Torch, why is international collaboration in the arts important?
Well, I think probably the most important is that we have to get outside of our comfort zone, those areas of repeated activity that we do. We learn where we live, where we work, a certain way of being, and we find that way of being or that way of implementing things is the right way, and we stop asking ourselves the question whether there may have been another way. As soon as we start collaborating with other international institutions or artistic organizations, we find suddenly that somebody often just suddenly throws something on the table that we've never expected. And being out of balance always means that when we find our balance, we're in a different place again. I'm not sure if I'm being clear, but my sensation is that the most important moment when we're taking a step is the moment before our front foot has taken the place and our back foot has already left left the ground. There's a moment there where you really could be thrown completely out of balance. It's that moment which is the most exciting. It's that moment at which anything could happen. You might fall and break your leg. You might start running. You might fly. And this can only happen when we collaborate with people who have another cultural context than we do ourselves.
This situation that you describe could be very frightening for a person. Mm. It could also be very frightening for an institution. Mm.
I would say that it's probably often more frightening for an institution because an institution is built on repeatability. It's built on creating a certain number of traditions and then maintaining them. And that anybody who enters into that at a later stage with another approach, they become frightened. For an individual, it's frightening to imagine it, but once you're there, it's actually the only way that you can imagine being. That is, a little bit out of balance is good. Obviously, you don't want to be knocked out of balance all the time. You don't want every institution to suddenly have to reimagine itself every time it engages with a new collaboration. But just enough so that we don't become too secure with our reality, because security is always somehow the first step towards death. To be direct.
Somebody has said that the only perfect thing is death.
Yeah, that's true. And Samuel Beckett said that art is daring to fail. And failure is not something that you do if you maintain an institution, but if you put that institution or yourself or your own work into a certain kind of danger, then often the result is positive, even though it might be painful in the first moment. So I think that collaboration international collaboration is an absolute requirement at this point in history. The economy is globalized, workforces are moving, products are being produced in one place and consumed in another. We're living in a world which is intimately interconnected. If we are not collaborating, then we're basically missing the boat.
You have just today led a workshop for future collaboration in Europe and within maybe the Artline project. What was the main thing you wanted to achieve in this workshop?
Well, my greatest hope was that I would help the Artline collaborators to reevaluate one more time their motivation for starting the collaboration. Not just to carry it on, not just to make it more practical. I'm sure that there are better organizers or coordinators in this group than I am. What was important was to rethink one more time, why do we want to do this? Because in fact, if you count the number of hours you put into a project like this, it's many, many, many hours of our lives. And it better be worth something. You don't keep on investing that time just to kind of maintain things as they were. My goal was to have people, to give people a little bit more courage, quite simply, to go a bit farther with the collaboration, not to do that which they would do or could do without the collaboration anyway, but just do it together with other people, but to actually do something that you wouldn't be able to do in your normal activities at the institution you are. So to give them courage to go just a little bit farther, to be a bit more radical in the choices that they make, because it's only through such research that we actually will come where we want to.
What is your opinion on Artline as a project?
I did a lot of study on it, a lot, but I mean, I looked around at the different websites. I know several of the institutions, especially primarily those from Poland and Lithuania, and I mean, it's an exceptional project in any number of ways, but above all, it's exceptional because it seems to be driven by a will to create a platform which is usable for new artists, for artists that want to try something else, who want to go outside of the space of the museum or the gallery, and who want to enter in, for example, into the public space. For me, this is a very important element of Artline, is entering into the public space or into the unconventional space, like telling the Baltic on the Stena boats on the ferries that are moving. Art re-entering our lives, our daily lives, rather than being an exclusive place. I think that this is essential. And it's great that art institutions and museums are those who are doing it, because basically at the same time they're recognizing that they can't stay inside their own institutions either. You can't just run Blekinge Museum in Blekinge and wait for people to come through the door. You have to step outside. And the nice thing about international collaboration and on Artline is that they seem to have inspired one another to go just a little farther than they would have if they had just remained within their own national or cultural context.
But the next time you want us to be even bolder.
Yes. Yes, I mean, I think that we must be bold. We must be bold because the forces that are at work, that are working against civilization, working against, in the good meaning of the word civilization, working against the development of a new and a modern culture, those forces are very, very bold, and they're very, very organized. And we need to be as organized if we are able to make some kind of, let's say, emotional or mental resistance to the mediocrity that is slowly somehow imprisoning us. So I think that boldness is a requirement. As the artists that we present, they have to be bold. An artist cannot be successful by being careful. And those who present and or produce artists can neither be successful without being bold.
I can only see one problem with this, and that is, how do we meet the public without repelling them at the same time?
Well, I don't think that boldness has anything to do with being rude or insulting or even controversial or political or dangerous to anybody. I think it means meeting them in a different context than the one that they are used to, and also by entering into new places for the encounter between the audience and the artist. We are reaching out to other kinds of audiences, because it's not the audience who would normally go and knock on the door of the museum and ask to be let in. So that I don't think that this has to be any danger whatsoever to the audiences. Obviously, people get much more upset by a sculpture in their public place than they do by all of the advertising that's put up all the time, whether it's Hennes and Mauritz, women in unfortunate presentations of women, or migrants, or whether it's consumerism or something. These things, we somehow feel that they have the right to invade our space, but that the artist does not. We have to make it quite common for people to feel that the space is shared space and that many different voices will be there. But I don't think it's a danger for the audience. The opposite. I would guess that that audiences become more and more curious the more challenging material we give them.
And one of your themes was that, or is that art creates more or better citizens, more aware citizens.
I don't say that art creates it, but art is a way of practicing citizenship. Art alone will never make a good citizen. However, good citizens are made only by practicing. And unfortunately, citizenship in our Western democracy has become this actually something that we don't practice anymore. We vote every third or fourth year. This is not enough practice. If I'm a football player and I want to shoot a free kick, if I only do it once every fourth year, I will never make any goals. I have to do it 40 times a day. So how do we practice it? The arts, interrelationships on the emotional and personal level in our near environment, this is practicing citizenship. And certainly we will be better citizens if we practice it more often.
And the international cooperation has a part here.
Definitely has a part in it, and it also has a part to learn to receive and distill and be critical of multiple voices in our society, because art is very definitely about the individual in the society. I mean, I'm not a great fan of Soviet art in terms of, the radical engineering of the human race. What I like is that multiple voices, when you walk into an art museum or you walk into a gallery or when you go to a theater performance, it's always different. It's a new voice. And we learn to deal with all of these voices without feeling endangered by them. One of the great problems that we have in Sweden and other European societies is the rise of extremist right-wing political groups. And that's because they're not managing the multiplicity of the society. So they get scared, so they have to close it down by either putting some people out and deciding that we only want to be this big. And if we're only that big, then we can keep everything under control. So that we have to teach people to lose control a bit and not feel that it's a danger to them that someone speaks in a color that I don't know or I don't like even.